Now, I mention this because it's a prelude to a very important historical moment that changed the movement. After that tear gassing, and everybody was enraged, including me, everybody, I mean, just that they did that. The march was being covered by national television, all the networks, just like the Summer March. A reporter and a television crew went up to Stokely Carmichael the day afterward, and Willie Ricks, who's a SNCC member, and kind of, what was your reaction to the tear gassing last night and the people getting hurt? And Stokely looked at them, and Willie Ricks looked at them. They put up their fists, and what did they say? They said, "Black power, black power, black power." And it went out on airways all around the country, which started the Black Power movement.
And that reaction?
June 1966. And that came 2 days or a day after we were tear gassed in Canton, Mississippi. And everybody was furious because they were not ready to do the Black Power thing yet. They were still having debates within SNCC and CORE and the organizations around Black Power. And one of the things I remember, Stokely was a compromise candidate. See, John Lewis was in, and they kind of, SNCC people felt John Lewis was too conservative. And that movement was being pushed toward maybe black consciousness. And there was some people to the left of Stokely. And Stokely was the compromise candidate who was going to somehow make some transition. So he was in the middle, because he was joking on the march all the time. He would see me, and he would joke with me when he'd say, "Oh, there's Poussaint, the father of black nationalism," you know. What are you talking about, Stokely? Like, he's spinning around in his head, which way to go? Well, after this tear gassing, he got up. And that's why when the slogan went out, it came across to the country as rage. And everybody said, "What?" You know, he said, "Black power, black power." And then they went running up to Roy Wilkins, head NAACP. "What's black power?" So Roy Wilkins said, "I don't know." Whitney Young said, "I don't know." It's King, "I don't know." And it was the young people, SNCC and CORE people, who pulled it off. And of course, Bob Moses was on the side of black power and black consciousness, and had been holding meetings throughout the South on black consciousness, including some of them in my apartment. So the FBI knew it was coming, and he had such a following that you knew it was going to happen. If they knew, Bob Moses was like a saint or something. So if Bob Moses was coming to town and there was a meeting was going to be held someplace, all the local people and everybody would show up for Bob Moses, and he would sit there and explain to them how the movement had burned out. And the next step was to develop black consciousness so that black people would gain strength. Now, the thing that the media has never reported about this, you know, there's a very significant, important position paper, SNCC position paper on the black consciousness movement. Some of the authors of that paper were white, who felt that the movement had to go the next step into black consciousness so that black people would come out of the state of mental and political oppression. I mean, there's one beautiful paper. I remember this. She was a white woman, and she wrote a paper with the pros and cons of going to black consciousness. What was the pros and what were the cons? And she lists them all. The cons would be, well, you would drive out white people, and you needed the financial support of white people. And she very systematically went through. Then she ended, she says, but in terms of the future and where black people have to get, who we fundamentally have to help, I go for the black consciousness movement as the next round.
And so in a sense, she, as a white person, was more ready for black consciousness to come forward than some of the traditional civil rights leaders.
Right. And these were usually white civil rights workers who were in the fields, and they knew what the situation was. because they would come back with reports that awful dilemmas. The black people were so oppressed, and this went on so frequently. It was if a white civil rights worker went to the local town and area, poor black section, and called a rally to be held so and so and so and so on, the black people would show up. The black civil rights workers would go into town, call for the rally at the church and so and the black people wouldn't show up. Because they felt, the white work perspective and the black perspective, that the black people were so used to seeing the white people as powerful, and white people as being the ones you respect, white people who have leadership, that it must be important for me to go to this meeting. Because they had the opposite image of black people and the black leadership, and they're not powerful, and so like they can't protect me. All the images that went with white and black would go in the head, and they wouldn't show up for the black workers.